Welcome back to Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into something truly transformative, I think, a topic that really touches every single one of us, the meaning, and maybe more importantly, the practice of love. Our guide for this is the incredible Bell Hooks and her seminal work, all about love, new visions. Now, Hooks, as you probably know, was just this force, an academic powerhouse, always challenging the status quo.
Oh, absolutely. Known for that sharp mind, but also for bringing this refreshing spiritual depth, not just dry theory.
Exactly. And this book, it really offers some radical new ways to think about loving. It's got this hopeful, almost joyous vision for how we can find our way back to love.
And it feels like a really crucial deep dive right now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because Hooks herself pointed out, our culture, we seem pretty uncomfortable actually talking about love, seriously talking about it.
Yeah, that rings true.
You think about pop culture, like that Tina Turner song, What's Love Got to Do with It? It kind of sums up this cynical vibe you often get.
Right.
And it's no surprise then that so many people feel like love is just impossible to find. Leads to a lot of fear, I think. Fear of commitment, fear of getting hurt again.
And Hooks' own story, her path to writing this book, it's incredibly moving. She talks about dealing with really deep grief, facing a life-threatening illness, and just this raw feeling of trying to get back something she felt she'd lost, from early abandonment. It wasn't just academic for her. These things pushed her into this deep dive, personally and intellectually, looking for, anchors.
Yeah, anchors. That's a good word.
Yeah.
And one of her really sharp early insights is about gender, isn't it? How men often theorize love, maybe because they've traditionally been the ones receiving care, while women are more often the practitioners, doing the work of loving.
Yeah. And
often speaking from a place of lack, not getting the love they need or long for.
Wow. That difference alone, it shapes so much, doesn't it?
It really does. Sets the stage for how we even understand the word.
So that's our mission today. Let's try and unpack these powerful ideas from Hooks, give you some hopefully actionable insights, and just maybe offer a fresh way to look at how you can understand and, live love in your own life.
Okay, so let's really dig into this first bit. Hooks basically argues that we as a society are sort of embarrassed by love, almost like it's a dirty word or something.
Yeah, like it's obscene.
Right. And she felt we just don't have the right words for it. Good vocabulary. We fall back on these vague ideas or super romanticized stuff that doesn't really help day to day.
Exactly. That common idea of love, especially romantic love, it's often just about, profoundly tender, passionate affection. Feels nice, but maybe a bit thin. But Hooks found this real breakthrough, a proper aha moment reading the psychiatrist M. Scott Peck, his book, The Road Less Traveled. Apparently lots of books she read just dodged defining it.
Ah, okay. So what was Peck's definition? The game changer. Right, here it is. Peck defines love as the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth.
Okay. The will to extend oneself. That's different. It's not just about feelings then.
That's the absolute core of it. It shifts love from being this passive thing that just happens to you to being an act of will. And that means intention and action. Will implies choice. You don't have to love. You choose to love.
Wow. That puts the responsibility back on us, doesn't it? It's empowering in a way. We're not just waiting for lightning to strike.
Exactly. We consciously bring it about. And Hooks builds on that. She breaks down the necessary ingredients for this kind of active love.
Okay, what are they?
She lists care, affection, recognition, respect, commitment, and trust, and also honest and open communication.
So it's a whole package deal, not just one thing. Care, affection, recognition, respect, commitment, trust, communication. That's a lot.
It is. It's a conscious effort. And this clear definition, it has this really powerful implication, maybe a challenging one for some. Which she states it clearly. We cannot claim to love if we are hurtful and abusive. Love and abuse cannot coexist.
Oof. That's a direct hit on a lot of common ideas, especially in families, right? Where people say things like, I'm only doing this because I love you, even when it's hurtful.
Precisely. It challenges that whole notion of tough love when it crosses the line into abuse or neglect. Hooks says they simply negate each other. You can't have both.
That is a very firm line. But, it can be confusing in practice. How does she help us tell the difference between, say, genuine care and this active, chosen love?
Well, she uses her own childhood experience, which sounds quite painful. She realized looking back that she did not feel loved in her family home, but she did feel cared for.
Ah, okay. Care, but not love.
Right. She describes it as this odd mixture of care and unkindness that ultimately didn't nurture her spirit. So yes, care is absolutely a part of love, one of those ingredients. Yeah. But it's not the whole picture. Just, providing food and shelter without respect, without recognition, without honest communication, that isn't love in this deeper, intentional sense.
That really clarifies it. So, for you listening, how do your own definitions of love stack up against this? The ones you learned or just absorbed? Are you maybe mistaking just being cared for with actually experiencing love in Peck and Hook's sense? It's definitely something to think about.
Okay, so if love is this active choice, this will. The big question Hooks tackles next is, well, where do we learn how to do that? She calls childhood our original school of love.
Right, our first classroom. But the lessons taught there are often pretty confusing, aren't they?
Yeah, seems like it.
I mean, think about how common it is for kids to be told harsh punishments are for their own good. Or hearing, I'm doing this because I love you right after being hurt. Hook says kids, deep down, even if they pretend to buy the grown-up logic, they know in their hearts it isn't right. They know it's a lie.
That resonates.
And she also points out the flip side, like overindulgence can also be a form of neglect. It teaches kids that love is mostly about getting what they want, not about learning to give or connect mutually. Either way, it muddies the waters about what love really is. And then she makes this really powerful connection, doesn't she? It's something that stopped me in my tracks.
Which bit?
There can be no love without justice.
Ah, yes. That's huge.
She argues that because children, culturally speaking, often don't have full civil rights, they're treated more like property of the parents. It makes them uniquely vulnerable to lovelessness. It's about power, really.
It really is. She tells this striking story about being at a party.
Oh, yeah.
With, educated, progressive people, and they were defending hitting kids, smacking or pinching. But these same people would be utterly horrified if someone did that to another adult.
Wow, that double standard.
Exactly. It reveals this deeply ingrained belief that it's okay to treat children differently with less justice. And this feeds the myth that abuse and neglect can somehow coexist with love. But Hooks is absolutely firm. Abuse and neglect negate love. Full stop.
And the book includes some really heartbreaking stories that drive this home, like Bob Shelby talking about his dad beating him repeatedly but still believing his dad loved him.
Or Jarvis J. Masters, the guy on death row, talking about other inmates covered in scars from childhood beatings, but none of them seeing themselves as victims of abuse.
It just shows how deep that confusion goes, how hard it is to even recognize lovelessness when that's all you've known.
So what's the alternative? Hooks pushes for what she calls loving discipline, which isn't about punishment, really. It's more about setting clear boundaries before things go wrong and teaching kids how to set boundaries for themselves.
So less about you did wrong, now you get punished, and more about here's the expectation, here's how we handle things responsibly.
Exactly. Teaching responsibility like you make a mess, you help clean it up. Not just sending them away in anger, though she's okay with things like timeouts used constructively. The focus is on teaching self-control and accountability, not just forcing obedience through fear.
She even looked back at old TV shows, didn't she? Like Leave It to Beaver.
Yeah, or My Three Sons. She points out that sometimes those old shows actually modeled a kind of loving parenting, where problems were handled through discussion, thinking things through, finding ways to make amends, often with more than one adult figure involved, offering different perspectives.
Interesting. Like maybe we've lost some of that.
Perhaps. It certainly raises a big question for all of us, doesn't it? Given everything she's saying, how can we actively, consciously make sure that loving actions, especially towards kids in our life, are never, ever tainted with abuse? It means really examining the norms we grew up with.
Definitely. Okay, so from justice in childhood, Hooks moves to another absolute pillar, honesty. The chapter title says it all. Honesty. Be true to love.
Right. And she starts with this powerful line. The heart of justice is truth-telling, seeing ourselves of the world the way it is rather than the way we want it to be.
Seeing things as they are, that requires real courage.
It does. Because, as she observes, lying is just.
Yeah.
Well, it's incredibly common, almost a cultural habit, often something we learned as kids, right?
Yep.
To avoid getting punished, or maybe not to disappoint an adult we care about.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it just creates this pattern of, she calls it convenient duplicity, where bending the truth because the easy way out in daily life.
And she weaves in this really significant thread about patriarchy here too, doesn't she? How it actually supports deception.
Yes, absolutely. The argument is that traditional patriarchy encourages women to pretend, maybe manipulate indirectly. Because direct power isn't always available. And it encourages men to build up this false self to hide their real feelings because being honest, being vulnerable is seen as being soft or weak.
Yeah.
So the system itself pushes against authenticity for everyone.
That connects back to what you said earlier about power.
Exactly. She brings in Carl Jung, a psychoanalyst, who said, where the will to power is paramount, love will be lacking. And Hooks argues that lying, or even just withholding information, is very often used precisely as a way to gain or maintain power in relationships. It creates an imbalance.
And she's clear it's not just men doing this, Rue.
Oh, no. She looks squarely at how women also participate in deception, sometimes lying to men to manipulate a situation, or maybe just to prop up a man's ego. She even outlines really serious examples, like a woman intentionally getting pregnant without telling her partner she stopped using birth control. It's not about blaming one gender. It's about seeing these damaging patterns clearly, whoever enacts them.
Got it. She makes a useful distinction, too, between privacy and secrecy.
Yeah, that's really important. Privacy, she says, is essential. We all need space for our own thoughts and feelings. That's healthy autonomy. But secrecy, that's usually about hiding things, concealing information, often for control.
Like they say in recovery programs.
Yeah, exactly. You are only as sick as your secrets. Secrets erode trust, which is fundamental to love.
And our whole culture kind of pushes us away from truth, doesn't it? Media, advertising, always creating a sense of lack, making us feel we need something else to be happy.
Totally. It makes us almost fear the truth sometimes. We worry it will hurt us or make us look bad. But as Hooks points out, mental health experts consistently say we're actually saner and life is more fulfilling if we commit to telling the truth.
So this bedrock of honesty, that leads us to commitment.
Right. Hooks says, commitment to truth-telling lays the groundwork for the openness and honesty that is the heartbeat of love. And crucially, this commitment starts with ourselves. It's essential for building self-love.
Ah, self-love. That phrase gets thrown around a lot. You can't love anyone else until you love yourself. But it can feel a bit vague. How does Hooks make it practical?
She acknowledges that confusion. And she explains that self-love isn't just a feeling you stumble upon. It's an active practice. Especially, she notes, for people who've been socialized, maybe through family or culture, to see themselves as inherently unlovable.
So how do you practice it?
Yeah.
Using Peck's definition.
Exactly. It means applying all those ingredients: trust, commitment, care, respect, knowledge, responsibility to yourself. She references Nathaniel Branden's work too, his 6 pillars of self-esteem.
Okay.
Things like living consciously, being aware of your actions and motives, self-acceptance, acknowledging yourself without judgment, self-responsibility, owning your choices. These are all active things you do.
And Hooks herself found some practical tools helpful, right? Like affirmations.
Yeah, she talks about using daily affirmations, simple things like, I'm breaking with old patterns and moving forward. And finding they gave her a real tremendous energy boost helped restore her emotional balance. It's about consciously choosing supportive inner self-talk.
That makes sense. And she also mentioned self-responsibility in terms of responding to injustice.
Right. Choosing how you respond when you're treated unfairly. And self-assertiveness, basically. Standing up for yourself, stating your needs and boundaries. Something, she points out, that sexism often discourages in women.
So the feminist movement was key in validating that for women.
Absolutely. Showing that having a voice, asserting yourself, is crucial for self-esteem and therefore self-love.
It's sobering to think, as she points out, that even people who achieve huge external success, like President Clinton she mentions, can sabotage everything if that success is built on like shaky foundations of low self-esteem. It leads to self-destructive behavior.
It's a powerful reminder. We have to learn to give ourselves that unconditional love, that deep acceptance that grounds everything else.
So thinking about all this, what truths about yourself, listening now, might you be ready to face and speak? How could you actively practice self-love this week? Maybe committing to more care, more respect, more honesty in your own inner world. And then how might that change how you show up for others? Okay, let's shift gears a bit now. We talked definition, justice, honesty, self-love. Now, Hooks takes aim at one of the biggest myths, maybe the most romanticized idea about love.
Ah, you mean falling in love?
Exactly, that whole notion. She talks very openly about her own experiences, repeatedly finding herself in painful relationships, even though she thought she understood love. That pain often comes from repeating patterns. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. She shares this really insightful and probably painful pattern she recognized in herself. Choosing partners who were, in her words, so much like daddy.
Meaning?
Quiet, hardworking, but also emotionally withholding. She realized she was caught in this desperate longing to finally get the love from these men that she hadn't received from her father.
Wow. That's incredibly self-aware and shows how our past can really hijack our present choices if we're not careful.
For sure. And it connects to another concept she brings up, which is quite provocative, the Peter Pan syndrome.
Ah, the man who won't grow up.
Pretty much. She uses it to critique a certain type of man, maybe from her generation or reacting to feminism, who rejected traditional macho roles, which is good. But instead of actually maturing into responsible adulthood, they kind of just stayed boys.
Yeah.
And often look for women who would basically mother them, provide that unconditional care their own mothers might have given.
Ouch. That sounds like a recipe for relationship disaster.
Well, yeah. It often fuels what she calls a gender war within the relationship.
Yeah.
It goes back to that patriarchal thinking, that Jung quote again, where the will to power is paramount, love will be lacking.
Right.
There might be affection, there might be care, but if one person is fundamentally trying to maintain control or avoid responsibility, genuine love, that mutual nurturing just can't flourish. It becomes a power struggle.
And a huge part of breaking that pattern is vulnerability, isn't it? Which feels risky.
Hugely risky. Hooks is clear. The practice of love offers no place of safety. We risk loss, hurt, pain. There are no guarantees.
And that fear, it holds so many people back, especially men maybe, who've been socialized to avoid showing vulnerability. They opt for control or just lovelessness to avoid the potential pain.
It seems so. And she also observes that women, even though often socialized as caregivers, sometimes abandon their own standards in romantic relationships.
How so?
They might tolerate behavior from a romantic partner, disrespect, lack of care that they would never accept from a friend, all in the name of getting or keeping the partner.
Ah, lowering the bar out of fear or desire.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that compromise prevents real love, real mutuality from ever developing.
So going back to Peck's definition again, love requires discipline and devotion. It's work.
Discipline and devotion. And this is important. She stresses that suffering and pain do not end when we begin to love.
Right. It's not a magic cure-all.
No. That fairy tale idea that finding the one means constant bliss. It's the dangerous fantasy. It stops us from learning how to navigate the inevitable difficulties, the challenges that are part of any real growing relationship. Love involves struggle sometimes.
Okay, so what about attraction? That initial spark. Isn't that part of it?
It can be a catalyst, sure. Erotic attraction is powerful. But Hooks is very clear. It is not a sign of love.
Not in itself.
Not in itself. She observes that men, perhaps more often, are led primarily by that erotic desire, sometimes overlooking fundamental incompatibilities because the chemistry is strong. Women, she suggests, while valuing pleasure, tend to prioritize emotional connection more, though, again, compromises happen.
And even our language trips us up here, doesn't it? Falling in love.
Yeah, that phrasing. It makes it sound passive, accidental, like you tripped and fell into a hole called love. It removes our agency, our choice.
So she suggests shifting our language.
She does. Towards phrases like, I am loving or I will love, language that acknowledges love as a decision, a judgment, it is a promise. It emphasizes that active commitment.
It's a completely different mindset. Not waiting to fall, but choosing to act.
Which leads to maybe the final big question Hooks leaves us with. Are we really ready for that? Ready for the active, intentional work love demands? Or are we still holding out for some effortless, fairy tale true love to just arrive?
That readiness seems key.
It does. As Hooks puts it, true love appears only when our hearts are ready. Ready to do the work, ready for the honesty, ready for the vulnerability.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive, Bell Hooks really challenges us, doesn't she? To move past these passive, often fuzzy ideas about love.
Definitely.
And to embrace it as this active, conscious choice. Often difficult, yes, but a choice nonetheless, requiring honesty, commitment to justice, definitely self-love, and crucially, being willing to let go of that will to power, that need for control.
But underlying it all, her message is actually one of, I think, profound hope. It's transformative. She says, love redeems.
Love redeems.
But only if we want to be saved. That's the catch. It means we have to first acknowledge our own lack, maybe our own wounds or cynicism, and see that not as a dead end, but as the space of possibility, and then actively choose to engage with love instead of, shutting down or giving up.
That's powerful. So for you, our listener, as we finish up, here's maybe one last thing to chew on, building on Bell Hooks' vision.
What one small, intentional act of love, using her definition, will you choose to undertake today or this week? Maybe it's offering clear words of affirmation or appreciation, or practicing genuine forgiveness for yourself or someone else, perhaps embracing a new level of self-acceptance, or maybe committing to having that difficult but honest conversation you've been avoiding.
Yeah.
How will you consciously, actively step onto love's path? How will you dare to change injustice, even in small ways, in your own life, in your relationships, holding on to that belief that ultimately, as Hooks reminds us, love is stronger than death?
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We really hope it's given you some fresh insights, maybe some courage for your own journey with love.